Hello, my name is Jeffrey Salas Perez. For my undergrad studies, I attended San Jose State University, where I obtained a Bachelor's of Science in Forensic and Chemistry. I'm currently a Master's of Science student in Pharmaceuticals and Cosmetic Science at the University of Cincinnati.
My name is Cinthya. I went to Sonoma State University, where I got my bachelor's degree in chemistry. And then I went to Sacramento State, where I got my teaching credential.
What led me to choose chemistry as my major was pretty difficult at first, due to being the first in my family to attend college. There was no direct route or guidance, and I thought that was okay because that's what made the process even more beautiful. In my early teens, I was very fascinated with crime shows, the FBI, the CSI, and forensic analysts. I knew I wanted to explore and venture out in an area that intersected between helping people and giving back to my community by using science as a bridge between the two. I think being able to use science to help those who are underrepresented and pursuing a bachelor's made me view chemistry in different aspects, pre and post grad. My degree wasn't handed to me. I had to navigate through the complexities of multitasking, work, rigorous courses, and keeping up with my mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. To add on to that, there isn't a lot of resources and mentorships in STEM for Latinos, so it makes it harder to foster diversity and inclusion.
I was an undocumented student during my college career, and I saw chemistry as a way where I could, in my head, something that could fix my problem, right? As soon as I walked in, I was the only Latina, one of the few women in my classroom, but I think it was almost kind of like a really cool moment to be in. I think when you're one of the first to do something that kind of, again, going back to that adrenaline where you're paving that pathway for other people in your position, made it that much more worth it for me.
What led me to decide to pursue a master's degree was as a love letter to my parents for them giving up so much, and as a love letter to my younger self, that this little queer Afro-Latino was able to take up space in places that are so underrepresented and be able to achieve and dream and create a path for others to be inspired and hopefully share that space. I think in being a STEM major, when you walk into the classroom, you're really put in an environment where you're not used to seeing people who look like you. So it's up to you to find those relationships and those networks within people in your field to really help you out and navigate you through the process.
I went into chemistry thinking I would go into the medical field after probably my junior, senior year. And knowing that you would be in college for so long, I wanted to make sure that this is something I wanted to really do. So I got this internship that became a job as a coroner's assistant. And so I was doing autopsies for about a year. I can still tell you what it felt like to be in there, and again, being the only Latina, one of the few women, it's again that whole you get really empowered to be in those areas that need people that look like us. Throughout my whole college career, I was working with youth, and I missed it. I really did feel like I was disconnected from my community on that aspect. I decided to go back to school to get my teaching credential. One of the best 6 years of my life. I loved everything about teaching and how, I know the value of receiving a big impact from a teacher, and how I hopefully did that for some of my kiddos. So it was a really good time.
Some tips I would give to those pursuing chemistry is to network with professionals in the field by attending conferences and joining organizations. Really utilizing your resources that cater to Latinos, for example, your student Latino success centers, and reaching out to those mentors, advisors, and minorities who also have similar backgrounds. But most importantly, being able to be persistent when you want to give up. Being able to advocate for yourself, because your voice really does matter in these types of spaces. And being able to find balance in your life and your mental well-being, because we don't talk about that enough. It's okay to take a day off and to find a reset. Growing up, I was actually a competitive dancer. So I really had an interest in the arts because of the richness and culture that they bring. And it's a very different perspective to people. So on top of loving science, I did want to incorporate an aspect of the arts because it's so important to have something on the side, and dance was there for me. I ended up getting a minor in it, and it really did help my process and enrich my academic experience overall, because I was able to have dance in the back of my mind and be able to have that whenever I had days of giving up. This is what I mean, being persistent.
What really helps with any major is taking an intro class. Just to put your feet in the water and see that if that's something that excites you and gets you, riled up and excited for. There's so many opportunities within that major that can take you wherever you'd like. So what I did is I started reaching out to some of my own classmates and did study groups and things that helped me learn faster. So I started to learn what kind of learner I was. And I think that's where a lot of us kind of just, we see it as difficult and we just want to stop. But that's a challenge even for yourself to see what are you going to do to see how you can better attain the material, right? It's really learning you. And so finding those challenges to really figure out who you are as a learner, not as something to just stop you.
So I work for Loomtech as a quality assurance chemist dealing with trace metal analysis. So we are in the heart of Silicon Valley. So we deal with a lot of metals, and we have to create this validation and standards for these metals in order to be used in various projects. For example, from our cameras to our chips to our computers to the machinery that makes these testings.
I am the owner or the CEO of La Chavez Bakery and Brews. How I got into it is I actually started making beer when I was a teacher. So I missed working in the lab. So again, I think that the trend is that, you stick to what you really love and enjoy. And so I, being a Latina, Mexican, my family has this notion of what drinking is. I then got into brewing because I wanted to show him how cool it was and the science behind it, and I nerded out doing the water chemistry and how I can make this one recipe in this beer that I was making, but change the water chemistry to have it taste like beer from Germany or from Mexico, and it was just so fascinating. And I saw this really cool vibe happening in my house in the garage, where we were drinking beer, my dad would start making tacos, my mom was making pastries, and the community collegiality that was just happening in the garage, and the conversations that we're now able to have over a beer. That was once not, something that you would do as a woman, and it was empowering. And so I thought, if this is something that I can provide for me in my garage, how cool would it be to do something like this in our community? Truly a place where you can be here with abuelita, with your dad, on your first date, with your amigas, that's truly what I wanted to bring here, and now seeing it, it's pretty cool, but it all stemmed from chemistry, for the love of science.
I was given the opportunity by a PhD professor at San Jose State University, where I was able to take part in an internship, and that was my forensic aspect, where I was able to study about cartilage and degradation and postmortem, and find a job in the county by just putting myself out there and really embracing my roots and my culture and showing them what I have to offer as a Latino in STEM. So I worked as a data analyst for the county, and I was also in an internship. And those two techniques that I use would be something that I use in my current job. I joined OCBiome, and I also joined a fraternity in order to create those connections and network.
When I was doing the transition to go from a teacher to owning my restaurant, a lot of people were like, she's crazy, why is she leaving her career job to do this? I knew what I was doing, I knew my goal. I wasn't really necessarily concerned about what people had to say, where that's, I think, where a lot of people may have probably stopped because of that. Learning how you learn and learning how to execute what you learn is really valuable anywhere you go. I know that I have to have a super organized agenda, I have to have alarms on my phone to remind me and to do things. But those are things that I had to learn about myself through all these experiences throughout.
I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Bolton, a POC, one of the only POCs to have a PhD and offer an internship on campus at San Jose State University. And she is under forensic sciences. And being able to feel finally free in all my identities really helped me push my path forward to my career. And she opened a lot of opportunities for me. And she wrote me a letter of recommendation that would eventually get me into my graduate studies program, which was my #1 option. I remember not wanting to be in a master's program because of all the rigorous courses and not having people to look up to who look like me. And she opened so many doors for me and taught me so many technical aspects. So she allowed me to express myself in a space where it would be my career, and it really helped me develop who I am today.
10,000 Degrees and If Given a Chance became pivotal because there was, again, no DREAM Act, so I didn't, at the time I was working towards going to Berkeley. Once getting accepted and knowing that I couldn't go because I had no financial support, you know, as a low-income student, first generation in your family, you have no idea what to do. I am so blessed because that's where I actually I bumped into Dr. Facundo. You know, I was in there doing the work. He's like, why haven't you filled out the paperwork? You need to get paid. You're doing it for free. And I was like, I can't get paid because I'm an undocumented student. Him being curious and angry as to why I wasn't doing these things pushed them to figure out ways to find me scholarships to get paid in doing what I was doing. So I am forever grateful for him. He changed my life. When you're stuck and you really don't know what to do, it's, again, going out there and finding those people, and you find them by pure surprise. For me, it was Sandy. She was my teacher for the program. She was my girl. She just recently passed away. It was so cool where she would come in, she's like, you did this. Like, I literally saw it on paper and now you're here. Like, how do you feel? You know, all the work that you've been doing is here. It's real time. And, you know, I think we get so focused on the goal and not necessarily the moment. And she was one of those people that grounded you. She was just like, just look around you, just stop, sit down next to me and just look. So she was very pivotal.